All right, in this video, we'll look at how you can set up the Resize tool, and we'll be using an example application to test the Resize tool. So let's get started. So I have already set up a cluster, and in this cluster, this is an existing cluster where there's a bunch of namespaces already existing on it. And there's a bunch of applications already deployed. This is a typical scenario with an existing cluster. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what the prerequisites that have been set up. So what I did was I went and downloaded the kubectl for this cluster and set it up with my kubectl CLI on my laptop. And so when I go and set this up and ask a question like get namespaces, it's going to essentially connect to this remote cluster behind a firewall using Rafay's Zero Trust kubectl, the same experience that you saw here using the CLI. The second thing is we need long-term metrics on this cluster. So what I've done is I've enabled this on this cluster. This is through this blueprint called custom. So all I did was went into the blueprints and gave a version and a name, and I went and selected the monitoring and alerting system add-on. This enables certain components out of the box on this cluster, which allows me to kind of look at and get the metric data points for the whole cluster, or even at a particular pod level. So we're using data, the Resize utility will be using data from the cluster using the kubectl API, and we're using the metrics data that we store in this centralized time series database on the Rafay controller to produce the recommendations. Okay, so now let's pivot to our CLI here. And so here's kind of what we're going to do. Create a namespace on this cluster called test, and let's check if it's available. Yes, it's active and available. And what I'm going to do now is I have an application here called a stress. So let's look at what it looks like. As you can see here, this is actually a very popular utility that is used by many people who are interested in doing stress testing of the applications. We're going to use the same thing, and I've noticed here that I've set up requests and limits using for 1000M for CPU and 512 MI for memory, and I have a higher number set for the limits for CPU and memory. Okay, so now let's go deploy this. And this will get deployed onto that. And let's go check if it's operational on my cluster. As you can see here, this has been deployed and it's running on the cluster. Now, if I pivot to the Rafay console, and I go to the resources tab, and I go to this thing called test. If you notice here, my pod is running. This is the exact pod we saw. And if you go look at you click on describe, you notice here that we are asking for limits and requests like we saw in the YAML file. Now, it's been about 2-3 minutes since I deployed this this application to this namespace called test. This is likely to have aggregated sufficient data points for us to have some meaningful metrics. As you can see here, this thing is healthy now. And as you can look at the metrics, it's got some data points already. So now we can actually start using our tool to figure out what this looks like with the Resize tool. So we're going to pivot back to the CLI, and we're going to look at to get to that particular Resize utility. You go to docs.rafay.zo and open source, and you click on the Resize utility. And as you can see here, there are step-by-step instructions, and I've already configured it with all the details needed for it to work. Set this up, and to get a simple help command, what we're going to do is just try that. And as you can see here, the Resize application Resize utility, you want help, you can just do a -h. There's a dry run option called -d, and you can target a specific namespace. In this example, we're going to actually try that because we don't want to mess with all the other namespaces. We want to focus in on the test namespace that we created to see how we can resize it. So what I'm going to do is go back here, and I'm going to use the -d option for dry run, and then we're going to target the test namespace. Now what it's going to do is it's going to reach out to the particular cluster and is going to produce output. As you can see here, it's basically come back and told me that I'm asking for 1, but I'm only using a fraction of that, and then there's a buffer that you can set, and including the buffer on top of the actual usage, it's recommending that maybe it has to get resized to 31 M. And then if you look at the memory size, same thing here. It's asking for 512, but is only using 100, and we can definitely reduce it and save a bunch of money in the process. So let's see how we can do this. So if I wanna do this, I just say -n test and take action. Now when I did the dry run, nothing would have changed. It's just a diagnostic mode. But when I hit when I run the test without the diagnostic mode, it will actually go ahead and make the changes, right? And as you can see here, it's gone ahead and made the changes, and the new request for CPU would be 33, and that would be a corresponding change for the memory. And now the tool is right now waiting for a few minutes before it'll go and interrogate the cluster again and report the new data. In the meantime, we can just pivot to our Rafay dashboard and see what it looks like. As you can see here, you can see a second pod that has come up, and this is, the age is it's just a few seconds old. And the reason for that is the Resize tool went ahead and made a change to the deployment, right? So if you go look at describing the thing, if you notice here, the requests have been changed. The limits are still the same, set at a high number, but the requests have been changed. So the amount of things allocated via the requests is now right sized to 33 and 125. That was the recommendation based on what it determined based on actual usage. So in a few seconds, the other pod will disappear. It's actually gone. So now I have a new pod. If I go look at the particular pod and describe it, and you'll notice that it has the actual right-sized requests for CPU and memory. So that's pretty much it. So what I did here was use this tool, the Rafay's open source and free tool that'll allow you to target a specific application, namespace, or the entire cluster if you want to, and it'll allow you to dynamically go and change the requests to the right values based on what it has observed in terms of actual usage. So if you go into this, I don't think we'll have a new data point here, but for the new pod, but this new data point here, as you see, it would be much lower than what it was before from an actual value perspective. So that's pretty much it. So if you want to use this tool, just again, very quick summary on how you can find it. Go to docs.rafay.co, go to open source, and click on Resize. That'll take you to this Git repository, and you can just it's free for you to use. Feel free to try it, use it. And if you have any questions on how it works, or if you have some enhancement requests, please contact us if you have any questions about this tool. Thank you.